Testing 1, 2, 3, testing 1, 2, 3.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Mayor Gamble. I will call our council meeting of Tuesday, September 10th, 2024 to order at 9 o'clock a.m. Welcome to everyone who is attending and joining us this morning, and I will confirm that we do have quorum. We have 5 council members in attendance, and we have Councillor Kowalski sending regrets. I will begin today's meeting with our land acknowledgement. We acknowledge that our meeting today convenes on the lands of Treaty 6, which is the traditional home of the Cree, Dene, Saulteaux, Blackfoot, and Nakota Sioux Nations, and members of the Métis Nation of Alberta, Inuit, and all First Nations sharing this land for generations. We recognize the long history and contributions of Indigenous peoples who have cared for this land from time immemorial to the present. We acknowledge that we are all treaty people, bound to one another by the spirit and intent of treaty as long as the sun shines, the grass grows, and the river flows. I will now turn it over to Councillor Weidman for an inspirational reflection.
Thank you. During our council meeting today, may we have strength and encouragement in our service to others. May we rely on wisdom to guide us and make good decisions for the present and future of Parkland County. I'd also like to say that we'd like to remember our colleague Alan Huslett, who passed away last month. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move to item number 2, which is the adoption of the agenda. I will look to council members for any additions or deletions for today's agenda. Seeing none, I'll look to administration.
Good morning, Mr. Mayor, and good morning, councillors. Administration has one addition for council's consideration. Adding item 6C4, cancellation of September 17, 2024, Governance and Priorities meeting.
Okay, thank you. So we do have an addition that is presented from administration. I'll look to Councillor Kabasiuk to move the agenda as amended.
So moved, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Questions, comments, debate? I will call the question. All in favor? The motion is carried unanimously. Let's move on to item 3.1, which is the adoption of the July 10th, 2024 special council meeting minutes. I'll look to Councillor Croucher-Johnson for the motion, please.
That the July 10th, 2024 special council meeting minutes be adopted as presented.
Thank you. Motion before us. Questions, comments, debate? I will call the question. All in favor? Motion carried unanimously. Item 3.2, look to Councillor Burney for the motion, please.
Move that the August 27th, 2024, 11 a.m. special council meeting minutes be adopted as presented. And I do have some comments on that, as it were. On PRE or pre-24-071, pertain to which item numbers and which complaint and what was the final decision of these complaints. So it's very difficult to read these minutes and compare them to the agenda and know what was in there. I would like to see that kind of referred better so that the agenda meets the minutes. You can't go from one to the other and understand unless you watch the video on what really happened. And then the other comment I have, that the only decision reflected in the minutes pertains to PRE 072, which was referred to by the mayor as item 8, and there is no item 8 on the agenda. And then another one is that the RFD 24-277 does not accurately reflect the meeting. It says that I recused myself from the proceedings, but in fact I made a motion at 11:35 a.m. to revert back into regular session. And finally, a final motion was made to retain an independent third-party investigator and provide a report to council no later than October 22nd, 2024. And I'd just like to pose a question to Mr. Dyke. Can you please share what the process is to retain an investigator and to deal with this particular complaint against me?
Mr. Mayor, to you and through you, in relation to the direction to hire an investigator, directed to the CAO, I will work with legal counsel to confirm an investigator to go through that process. That process will follow a standard investigation methodology. We'll come back to council, the final report will come back to council for review and then ultimate decision on the outcome of that investigation.
Thank you for that, Mr. Dyke. Will we have an option of investigators, a list of investigators of which to choose from?
Mr. Mayor, to you and through you, the selection of the investigator was deemed to be the role of the CAO, so that will be something that I select.
Thank you. Any questions, other comments, debate? Councillor Weedman.
Yeah, that motion was, I believe, was made by me, and I think it was very clear, and it gave direction to the CAO, and I don't believe that there should be any other issues regarding that, so.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments, debate? Councillor Bernie?
Yeah, so as to the first 3 points that I brought up, what do we do about those? Could we have those looked at?
Mr. Mayor, to you and through you, council could direct administration to review those minutes and bring them back at a future date. The minutes were thoroughly reviewed by administration as presented, but council can direct that should they choose.
Yeah, and as I says, when I went through it, it doesn't accurately reflect some of the things, so we'd like to go through it again at a later date.
Okay, so any further comments, questions, debate? I'm comfortable with the thorough review of administration as the minutes as they have been presented, and will be supporting. Any other questions, comments, debate? We'll call the question. All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Let's move on to item 3.3. Back to Councillor Weedman for the motion, please.
Adoption of the August 27th, 2024 special council meeting minutes to be adopted as presented.
Thank you. Motion before us. Questions, comments, debate? Councillor Bernie?
Thank you for that. Regarding the withdrawal of item 11, which was a complaint that contained confidential information that I inquired once again as to who the complaint is and what, who the complainant is and what proof do we have that she exists. It seems that I've been informed that Lori Foisey, who is the complainant, is none other than the wife of Mayor Gamble's first cousin. So at least now we know that she's an actual person, that she is closely related to the mayor. With that, I also have some comments as to an upcoming media release that we were asked about, and I would like this to be put on the record, please. There is an upcoming media release signed and approved by Mayor Gamble that has been crafted by administration. This statement is misleading by design and void of transparency. It purposely states that the first 3 complaints were deemed invalid, which is true, but it does not state who these 3 complaints were against, and that they were judged invalid by the very people named in them. Hence, this is the reason for the lawsuit for dismissal that has been brought forward against the Mayor and Councillor Wiedemann and Kabasiak. Furthermore, the message currently states that we are aware that an application has been filed to seek disqualification and removal of myself, Councillor Kabasiak, and Councillor Wiedemann from council. None of these allegations have been proven, and the matter is still to be heard by the court. Again, for accuracy and transparency, it should read that the application contains accusations that are factual and on record, although not yet heard by the court. Finally, of interest and transparency is the remaining complaints that were against Councillor Kowalski and me, of which the majority were brought forward again by a close family member of Mayor Gamble, by the common law partner of his first cousin. If we are going to put out public statements, let us ensure that we state all the facts and not just the ones in favor of certain members of council. Those are my comments. Thank you. I want them on record.
Great. I also have some comments as far as the complainer and the requirements that's laid out within our council code of conduct. There is no requirement related to any association of any council member. I'll also note, I believe you just breached confidentiality by stating the name of the complainant. And you're not finished, so I'd just like to clarify that with Mr. Dyke, if that's, if we can maybe have a review of that related to the privacy of that information at this point.
Mr. Mayor, to you and through you, at this point, as these matters are under investigation, I would say that I'll hold comment pending that investigation.
Great, thank you. So it is confidential. Thank you. That's all I want to clarify. Councillor Weedman?
Yeah, I believe that that recommendation for the statement hasn't been approved yet. So it was pending, I guess, approval by council. So I think it's premature to even discuss it here. And those, so that item is still being is still on the table. It hasn't been let out yet. So that's, I guess that's my comments.
Yeah, and I'll also just respond to that, that was a proposed statement that is made by the mayor, who is the official spokesperson of council. There's been other instances where we've had people who were not the deputy mayor posing as the deputy mayor making comments related to code of conduct in the media, which is, again, another violation, in my opinion. So,
And I will say that that is equivocally not true. However, as to these comments, yeah, they were approved. Yes, we still have to talk about them in council, but as we know, there's certain things that they do need to be approved by council. So I want these on the record. And those are my comments.
So again, they have not been approved. They have come to council for approval. If we receive majority vote of council, then it will be approved by council and printed, not as an individual going to the media.
And one other comment too. The complainant's name was named many times during these hearings and in public. So they were brought up many times in other council meetings. So it is not breaking confidentiality. It's been there before.
It is not. The only time that name was mentioned was by you. Councillor Kubasiak?
Mr. Chair, I guess I have some concern with discussion. Any other time that we have a filing or an issue before courts, we're advised that there is to be no discussion once matters before court. So I'm uncomfortable with the way that this matter is being brought up and how we're addressing it, because it's not how we follow proper procedure when we deal with any other filing before court.
Great. Thank you, and I would agree. So we do have the motion before us. Any other questions, comments, debate? I will call the question. All in favor? Those opposed? Motion carried. Thank you. Let's move on to item 4.1, to our public input. This is an opportunity for residents that have concerns to bring them forth to council for consideration. I will note that we will not engage in debate, but we'll simply accept the information and move to our administration. And should we provide comment, I'd be happy to do that after hearing from our public input attendees. So I'll look to Legislative Services for any registered speakers this morning. I believe I've received that we have two. So the first one that I see is Mr. Peter Nolting. If you'd like to come forward, please. Welcome and thank you for joining us this morning. And when you're comfortable, if you could depress the middle button on the microphone and state your name for the records, and then we'd be happy to hear from you.
Good morning, I'm Peter Nolting, and I want to make everybody happy today. This will be the last time I'll show up here in this matter. This has been going on way too long, and I feel like in an old story I read as a kid about a man named Don Quixote. He fought the windmill. He really fought the windmills, and that's the way I feel. For I didn't get anywhere. I just kept fighting. On June 28, 23, there was a clip on TV, and I took notice. It says, every taxpayer deserves to be treated fairly. I don't think I was treated fairly. In fact, nothing was done. I was told to file a complaint because the neighbor was not following the rules. There were I estimate about 15, 20 tons of commercial industrial goods parked on that property next to ours, including 2 sea cans staring me in the face. I filed a complaint, and I was told that there will be nobody will know that it was me. Confidential. Well, within 14 days, the neighbor knew who filed the complaint because the officer who came to investigate walked from their property right to ours, and there is not even a fence between us. So from day one, I was being harassed, lied to over and over again by the town people, mainly the bylaw enforcement. I don't know. Like I said, I'm a journeyman cabinet maker. I'm a journeyman carpenter. I'm not a lawman. But I have never been charged with anything more than a traffic violation. So like I said, I don't know what to do anymore. I've got, after almost a year and a half, I got this letter from a lawyer from the county, which says, with respect to enforcement, the county is not obliged to take enforcement action. Rather, the county retains significant discretion as to when and how it may enforce its bylaws. Well, to me, this, like I said, I'm not a lawman. I didn't study law. This tells me all the bylaws written are null and void. Some county official, some office mouse can make law. I don't know. Like I said, I'm not studied. I worked with my hands, not so much with my head. I tried that a few times and it hurt. So I went back working with my hands. I'm totally baffled how this two-line caveat in a lawyer's letter can void bylaws that took months and months to write and cost a whole lot of money on top of it. How the heck? This is not law. This is dictatorship. If one person can wipe out all written bylaws, no. Like I said, I've been here, this is my 4th time, and I spent over $8,000 on a lawyer to get the neighbor to clean up the about almost 20 tons of industrial goods that were stored on the property with the okay of the bylaw enforcement. I don't know what to do anymore. I don't have that kind of money to go, but I will not quit. I'll talk to some people. I have talked to some already. This is nuts. Like I said, I was born in 1941. As a 3-year-old, I saw airplanes shooting each other with tracer ammunition before Mom shoved us into a hole in the ground, which many years later I learned was called the bunker. A Russian soldier broke bread with me when I was 3 years old, 80 years ago. I remember like it was yesterday. I met so many people, so many situations, but this, what happened here, it's one for Ripley's Believe It or Not. It's just nuts. Like I said, I don't have the education to make a big speech here. I reckon this is what you get. Like I said, I'm baffled how one office person can wipe out bylaws that have been enforced for I don't know how many years with a two-line caveat. It just wipes out all the bylaws and picks winners and losers. We have the right to do this. Anybody has the right to do this. I came here asking, pleading, begging for help. And after a year and a half, I get this. Why wasn't I told this in the beginning? Sucks to be you, Peter. You know, just pick a different county.
Okay.
Anyway,
Yeah, thank you.
thanks for listening.
Yeah, thank you for sharing, Mr. Nolting. I believe Councillor Weedman has comment. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Peter, for coming in today. As you probably know, I'm the counselor for your area, and I've sat here and I've listened to you several times, and you had some legitimate complaints when you first came in, and you chose to talk to Councillor Bernie, who is not your counselor at the start. She passed on your complaint to me, and as soon as I heard it, I went to your place. And do you remember that? I sat down with yourself and your daughter there. And I don't normally get involved in debate in these things, but I'm going to do it this time. I listened to you several times come in here after that, and you still chose to deal with Councillor Bernie and not myself after that. I personally went to your place twice now, and on the third time, well, actually 3 times, and on the third time after the county had dealt with it, there was significant changes in the stuff that your neighbor had there. He was made to take a lot of it out. So there's been some major changes around there. You keep coming in here and saying nobody's doing anything. We did. We did what we could at the time. It's probably still open. I'm not sure if it's closed or not, but it's open. We've done what we could do at the particular time. You don't like what we did, I think, is the issue here. And you keep talking to Councillor Bernie about it. You chose not to talk to me as your counselor, so I can't help you if you don't talk to me. I did go by there. There was some cleanup done. You don't like it. I can't help that, but it was done. And I don't think we're finished there. I think that we're watching that place, and if the land use changes even more, we're going to be on his case. On the weekend, I was at Wabman, I was at Fallis, and I was at just yesterday at Lakeside, which is another subdivision in my area. Exactly the same issues, complaints from neighbors, and we dealt with them or we're dealing with them. So I don't like it when you come in here and you say we didn't do anything. We did, but you failed to admit that. And I think you need to admit that we have done some things there, significant things that our staff have implemented.
Yeah, that sounds real good. And
Microphone, please, Mr. Nolting. Mr. Nolting, could you please depress the middle button? Thank you.
they had done things. The material all was left there. It was just covered with tarps, hidden in the bushes. Nothing left until the property got sold a few months ago. It was storage area, and you got the pictures, Mr. Mayor got the pictures, and we have more. The land, it was not cleaned up until they sold it just a few months ago. And now I talked to the new neighbor yesterday. He came, he's gonna clean it up. No, they didn't do a damn thing. They just hid it in the bushes, and as per I'm Your Ruler, Sarah, she went and said, everything that's there it's okay. There is no limit to the Joneses. They could bring in whatever they wanted. None of that equipment, none of the stuff, there were dozens wrecked cars. Some were new in the 60s or 50s. They were parked in the bushes. No. Everything was hidden after I initially came and Mr. Mayor, you got the pictures?
Yeah.
I gave you some pictures. I have more. I can make a book with what was done there.
Yeah.
It just not, no.
Yeah, may I suggest, Mr. Nolting, I understand your concern and that you did have concerns, and we have recognized that Parkland County has acted, that action has been taken, the property has changed hands, there is new owners. You mentioned to me this morning that you'd like to set up a meeting. I'd be more than happy to have you come in with our division councillor, and we can kind of review where we're at this point in time. If you're comfortable with that, we can have our administration arrange a meeting. You can come in and visit with the councillor and myself, and I'd be happy to listen and understand further what your concerns are remaining. Okay?
I appreciate that.
Okay.
It's just, I should not have had to take a lawyer to get that place cleaned up and spend 1/3 of my annual income on the lawyer to get this done. Like I said, this caveat here, that should have been told to me when I first addressed the problem, because they were working on that property. They were actually working. They, like I said, you got the pictures.
I do have the pictures, and I can tell you that this isn't the only concern that we have for residents that relates to what you would have witnessed as unsightly property, and those files do take a considerable amount of time to, first of all, recognize, to understand the complaint, to enforce, to understand the level of enforcement. That is a long time frame in certain cases. So I would suggest that we get together and have a meeting, and we can discuss this further if you like.
From those people that came to my property, they said there was no problem.
Yeah, and if you could leave a copy of that letter with us, we could certainly review it prior to meeting with you, if you're comfortable with that, and if not, you're welcome to bring that to a meeting with us.
All right. Thank you for
Thank you for
listening.
coming in today.
Okay.
Thank you. Okay, I believe we have one more registered speaker, Miss Natasha Stenzel-Boudreau. If you could come forward, please, and welcome, and thank you for coming in this morning.
Thank you. Good to be here. I have 3 different subjects. So we'll start on the first subject is that I purchased a quarter section in April 9th, 2021. Every year since then, I've been inspected by the county. But at first, it was definitely heavy-handed enforcement that ended in court, where the county lost tens of thousands of dollars in their heavy-handed enforcement over a $500 ticket. Then we proceeded on, and the next year, again filmed by both us and the county, heavy-handed enforcement. This year, I would like to thank the county. There is definitely new change, and we were inspected again being falsely accused, but it was under the premises, and it really was a point that they came across as, we're here to make you better. We're here to, and he definitely needs a new title. It's development enforcement. His name was Sean O'Hanlon, I believe. And he didn't come with an entourage of 5 people like the previous first years. He came with 2 people, very informative, very respectful, sent out a letter right away. Here's what you need to do better. And we're closing the file, and no, you were falsely accused. Amazing, so thank you. Would love to welcome that kind of educational support. So his new title, rather than development enforcement, should be development enlightenment and support. Something to that effect, because we do need, we're a long development like most. We're a 10-year permit. It's going to take us 10 years just to develop phase 1. And we have 3 phases. So we do need to work well together, and we do need to do better on both sides. So I welcome next year, and because I feel that it is not a bad thing, just like you go to your doctor to check up on a yearly basis. However, the past enforcement was not productive at all, was told everything that they felt that we were doing wrong, but they were incorrect, by the way, found by a judge. So it was founded in a court of law that the county was incorrect, and I get to carry that banner for a very long time. But going forward, I have to embrace this new change, and please go along the change of making our county better, but also helping and supporting development. So a part of that is he made some great suggestions. And from those great suggestions became more suggestions. So we actually, within a day, they found that the trees that we were accused of taking down during bird nesting season, though they were lying on the power lines, within one day, Fortis Alberta was there. They gave us a notice, and from that notice, they're removing a lot of trees. But we got the opportunity to go and save some trees, so Alan's tree has now 100 new friends.
Wow,
I
that's
know.
exciting.
So we were able to go along. We gained a great group of people that dug trees to save them. But going to get the permit for that, first of all, our land title outdates every 2 weeks. So to get a permit, I know, I saw your look, sorry. Every 2 weeks, I need to get a new land title. And I was just told by this kind gentleman, didn't get his name, that yes, you denied me permits for my sea cans. And I got the permits for the trees, but they, at the counter, because I'd just given my land title, and it's dated August, I believe, 6th. And we didn't dig trees until the 22nd, and the tree permit is only good for 30 days, and it's $1 per tree. No problem. Paid it, got it. They had to make an exception, which they wrote on my permit, because it says that you have to be within 100, you cannot be within 100 meters of a residence. So they made an exception. Greatly appreciate that. However, I'm trying to get the other recommendations from Sean's inspection, which is some CCAN permits for building our cabins and some of the other things. And now, because they got all the drawings and everything, they're saying, sorry, we need another permit. And then they're outdating, my land title is outdating again every 2 weeks. So this is a requirement, not legislation. I would please beg you, implore you, give us our permits that we came down, we met with the staff, we pulled them, and now they're being denied based on our land title. Please, can we have our permits? It's not too much to ask for. So, going back to making us better, which thank you again, and that we need to adjust that requirement, is the heavy-handed enforcement. So, upon going through a 2-hour walk around and making a lot of notes and getting a lot of very valuable information, we found out that what we were being accused of was not us. Is that the reserve that was taken from our property along the lake is not only being dumped upon severely, made that we can't walk down from one of our trails through to the lake. It's been dumped piles of debris and trees and stacked up so that you cannot even walk. And so Sean took pictures and he said, but I'm sorry, you will have to make the complaint because we're a complaint-based county. And sure, okay. So yes, I called up Sarah. And I'm sorry, her last name pronunciation escapes me. At any rate, she will not return my phone calls. She's not returned the call that I made to the county or the complaints, and it's a very biased situation. My complaint is beyond legit. It is reserved, that's being dumped on, has been witnessed by the county employees. Not only is it being dumped on a regular basis along with our own property, but it's built on. And then I was shocked to find out that the county does know this. So Lot 20 has built 3 structures, living structures, and has built not just 18 inches, which would be acceptable from any measuring stick, but more than 20 feet onto the reserve property, and is using this for their own use. And we can't even get a return phone call. Came down personally to make the complaint, was told to phone the complaint in to the county, and then personally tried to phone Sarah on the number I was given. left a message. No phone call back. So it is a very biased system. And so when you're not perceived as first class, or when I did my FOIP, that is very enlightening. I recommend to anybody to do a FOIP. So the FOIP definitely shows the bias, not only against myself personally, but against our very eco-friendly development. And then that, yes, I've been improved or proven in court more than once as being right, because I did learn to stand up for my rights when I believe in something. And yet I was being accused by them that, no, I did something without permits. And I was sued for that once and found innocent. At any rate, that should not be in the County of Parkland's record. It's not even happened in the County of Parkland. They shouldn't be discussing it. At any rate, I want to make our future better, and that's why we're doing what we're doing, which leads me to my last point, the water recycling permit that I have pulled, that we've spent tens of thousands of dollars trying to get, and told you all that we'll be on TV soon. So they didn't just think that this was the most incredible news story ever. They decided to do a documentary on it. So we signed a contract to do a documentary, and following and meeting with our engineer, who tried everything with the County of Parkland to get a water recycling permit, and even proposed a testing permit. That, yeah, we all recognize it's a new thing. But I got an email that said that people are going to get sick using their bath water to flush their toilets. I don't drink from the toilets myself, and we went through this before. But our engineer, every time he felt that he came to a final agreement with the county, he would later get a letter stating, oh, now that we have to prove that not more than 22 people would be using our amenities building. Well, frankly, everyone has their own little septic tank on our property and their own little toilets. And very few people, other than myself, use our toilets. So at any rate, I implore the county not to miss this incredible opportunity to be a leader in recycling of water. It's a hot topic. I can really tell you it's a very hot topic. And it's not one that you want to be on the wrong side of. And this is done throughout the world. I was very fortunate to go to Japan. And so was our engineer just recently. And this is something they've done since the 80s. And in fact, it's in their building code. I understand and I sympathize that there is a lot of sides to this story because the building code is done by the federal government. And there's a stand data. And I'll tell you, you have to be Japanese to read it because it is very complex. And it's interpreted. But it is still left to the county to do the ultimate in issuing the permits or even trying a test permit or anything. But it comes from you because you guys are the ones that give the direction. But unfortunately, the staff and the administration have no interest in approving this, even testing it, which isn't ideal. That I did talk to our MLA, Shane, and I am meeting with our federal because it is a bigger problem. Like, we need to be recycling water. This is a big issue, like this biggest issue, bigger than even enforcement. Water and fresh water has to be used better. And we all, again, discussed this early on in your brochures that you recognize this as a problem. If you recognize it and it's in your brochures, create solutions, because we're here to say we want to do this. It says it right in the stand data that the public wants to recycle water, but you're not letting us. So it's half-built, still has not got a permit, though we've pulled it and paid double for all the things that we seem to try to do. But we're trying to work with the county. And again, I implore you, please, somehow find a testing, whatever you want to do. I get it, it's new, we're the first, but we shouldn't be the last.
Great, thank you for coming in today and sharing the information with us. The one area that I would like is perhaps our administration could get some information from you when you're on your way would be related to the enforcement and the issue that you had with the dumping on the reserve land. So perhaps we could get some more detail on that complaint, and we could certainly follow that one up very quickly. With respect to the water, I know we can meet with our administration and review the information that we shared, that you've shared with us. I know that's been ongoing, but we also recognize the jurisdictional issues with respect to water and what our role plays within that. So we will review that information with our administration as well.
Well, the one thing that the county has a caveat on is, as I understand, you don't want to take liability. Nobody wants liability. Everyone tries to shed it, get it. But the engineer has a stamp and was stamping the drawings and accepting all, also credit, but liability.
Yeah.
And you have stamped plans that have been sitting in limbo for so long, and then they were made better by the county's collaborative approach. We did meet, we did have, and we all thought we had the permit, we all thought we had an agreement, and then all of a sudden, oh, no, prove to us you won't let 22 people a day use your facility. Well, what if we have an event and that more than 22 people use our facility on one particular day? Might be Christmas. Who's to say? I have lots of kids and grandkids, but I can't guarantee that. But that should not stop a water recycling permit. That is the least of anyone's worries, because it would just be recycling more water.
Right.
So I think that there could be some sort of testing, some sort of, like, let's try to get to a better place for us all. And recycling water should be a big flag in everyone's, I guess, flags in the back of you.
Right.
But we need to go forward. And I welcome the county's emails and calls as long as they're productive and moving forward. And I cannot say enough about my last experience, that it was, again, from a place of making us better and not an entourage of peace officers.
Right. Well, I certainly do thank you for the balance that you've provided today. And I do know that our issues with respect to water would relate to liability as well as jurisdictional. And we will follow up and review that with our administration. And also for recognition of our Parkland County team, we do look at things. We have a committee, the Alice Committee, for the alternative land use that we use. And we've had significant wins in that area. So we are working towards that, but we do have to recognize that sometimes moving into those areas, when it does touch things like water, that we're also bound by legislation and jurisdiction of the province, and in some case the federal jurisdiction. So as you said, we are moving forward. We are looking at always continually getting better in how we conserve our land and how we care for our environment. And that's certainly of utmost concern for this council and our administration. But we will follow up the issue with water, and we will get back to you, as well as perhaps we can get some further information with our administration for the enforcement of the dumping that you're experiencing.
Also,
on
the
property.
30-day land title, like, that's
Okay,
ridiculous.
as well as, yeah,
Like,
yeah.
please.
Sure, go to Councillor Weedman, then Councillor Burton.
I just want to speak to that. I'm not sure if you clarified it clearly or not, but I think what you're referring to is the land title has to be within 30 days when you apply for a permit. Is that, okay, 14. So I know that's a requirement, and what you're saying is that's not enough time, I think.
Correct. It's not even close to reasonable, especially over any holidays or anything which we just experienced, which was the September long weekend. And to be fair, like, even your own staff, how'd you turn things around in 14 days?
And so I think that needs to be looked at. It is an issue, and it has been an issue for developers in the past. I will share something with you, and staff may not like this, but many years ago I brought a wastewater system in from Germany, and Germany, as you know, is way ahead of what we are. I could not get it a permit to use it in Parkland County. I finally got it to use in Strathcona County. So I'll share that with you. Hopefully our system has changed or will change, and we're open to those things. There is always some loopholes with new technology. I'm not sure where you're at there, but what I'll do is I'll make a commitment to come out and look at your system, because I'm interested in those things. And and I'll take a look at it, and then we'll discuss that from there. How's that?
Great, thank you. And I will note that our 9:30 appointment is here, so we'll look to wrap up soon. Councilor Bernie?
Thank you for that informative information. So I look to Mr. Dyke about water recycling and what information administration does have on it, and I'm wondering if it would be worth sending something to the Alice Committee to have them discuss this. Take a look at Natasha's plan and see where is administration on this, please.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Bernay. Through the mayor and to all of council, water reuse is regulated through the Alberta safety codes. And so any system that is proposed, whether it's through an engineer or any other consultant or professional, still needs to meet the requirements of the code. And so that's how we're measuring any application that comes in, whether it's Ms. Stenzel's application or any other proposal that we have. We're bound by provincial regulation to do so.
Thank you for that. I'm just wondering if it's worth looking at for what Ms. Stenzel is looking for. I think, and Ms. Stenzel as well, when is this documentary that you spoke of going to be aired?
Well, it takes a lot of filming, and of course your side hasn't been filmed yet. But we've already started the filming of it and the contracts that we signed to release all the information, including our engineering information, and also the back and forth. So we filmed a lot of it, which started with a heavy-handed enforcement 2 years ago. It goes on for more than a year. So it won't be aired for almost 2 years. But it gives an opportunity for everyone to actually go through the whole system to show not only how bad the system is, which is your side, but some of the things that people interpret. So what Nancy is speaking of is it's being interpreted. So the safety codes goes deeper and deeper, which is then into the CSA, which is the Canadian Standards Association, which then is interpreted further and interpreted further. And these people who are engineers and have taken schooling for, my engineer is more than 10 years, they're even having a tough time with it all. And that's why we all joke that you have to speak Japanese to interpret this. But there's many stops along the way that we could have said, okay, your amenities building, very small, having 2 bathrooms, can easily handle this water recycling. And yes, in many other counties, is already being used. And yes, we are just, as a county, not open to more environmental measures. And sorry, frankly, being a realtor selling across Alberta, you're way behind on the uptake on the water recycling, way behind. And every major city is on this and also giving grants, I might add you. So rather than us spending all of our money on engineering, they are doing grants to do this. We haven't received 1 penny. We've spent more than $35,000 on tanks, plumbing, engineering. Our engineering is over $15,000. And stamped plans twice. So it's a stamped plan by an engineer, and now it's a battle of who's the best engineer. And that's unfair. That's really unfair. It should be more collaborative and saying, okay, why don't you have a capacity of 22 people, sign posted out there? Why don't you have signage inside saying water recycling, be careful, don't drink the water out of the toilet? There's many ways that we could have overcome this, even from a safety codes point of view.
Thank you. Oh, sorry. Thank you, Ms. Stenzel. So I look to Mr. Dyke. It does sound interesting, like there could be more information, and if we are behind the times, then maybe we need to look at that. Mr. Dyke, is there any information that you see that administration could bring forward in the coming, in the future so that we can become more up to date on this issue?
Mr. Mayor, to you and through you, administration can certainly look at the current state and best practices and ensure that we align with those.
Appreciate that.
All right, thank you.
Appreciate that, thank you.
All right, thank you. Thank you for coming in and sharing today, and we will have information with respect to the immediate concerns and then as well as gather information for the third concern as well. So thank you for coming in today. Appreciate it.
Welcome anybody.
Certainly. We'll come with Rob, yeah. Thank you.
Please do.
Thank you. Thank you. Have a great day. Okay, we are going to move on. Anyone else who is here today to speak for public input that has not registered? Thank you. Okay, let's move on. Item 4.2, which is our 9:30 a.m. appointment, the Sturgeon River Watershed Alliance. And I'll look to Mr. Cross for introduction, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the council. I am pleased to welcome with us here this morning Ms. Kelsey Norton, who's a watershed planning coordinator with the North Saskatchewan Watershed Alliance. And she's here to present an update and provide some information on an exciting opportunity that they have before us here for consideration this morning. And with her is Ms. Evelyn Nickel, our Manager of Environmental Services, and she'll follow up the presentation with a request for decision around what Ms. Kelsey Norton talks about. So with that, I'll turn things over to the ladies for their presentation. Thank you.
All right, good morning, everyone, and hello, Mayor Gamble, as well as the fellow council of Parkland County. I am very happy to be here today to present on behalf of the North Saskatchewan Watershed Alliance, and more specifically, the Sturgeon River Watershed Alliance. And thank you, Dave, for the very welcoming introduction. Next slide, please. So today I am here to talk about our organization, just quite briefly on the North Saskatchewan Watershed Alliance. So lots of acronyms in here. So NSWA is the organization that I work for. I do touch on who I am and my role within the organization, as well as the Sturgeon River Watershed Alliance, and again, another acronym, so SRWA, of our history and where we are now, and an overview of the Alberta Community Partnership Grant, or better known as the ACP grant. So I wanted to start off on prefacing that a big foundation of our organization is based off the Alberta's Water for Life strategy released in 2003. It states water is not only a resource, it is a life source. We all share the responsibility to ensure a healthy, secure, and sustainable water supply for our communities, environment, and economy. Within this strategy, 3 goals have been highlighted: safe, secure drinking water, healthy aquatic ecosystems, and reliable water for a sustainable economy. The key directions put forward were knowledge and research, partnerships, as well as water conservation. Next slide, please. And with that, WPACs came to life, so also known as Watershed Planning and Advisory Councils, which the North Saskatchewan Watershed was significantly one of these within the major river basins across Alberta. So there are 11 throughout the province for all the major river basins highlighted in the map here. So there's one for Red Deer, for example, as well up to, Mighty Peace. So we're fortunate to work collaboratively across the province as independent nonprofit organizations designated by the Alberta government. Next slide. So this is our board and team. So we are a diverse group. We have a board of directors that consists of people with backgrounds from agriculture, industry, and very multidisciplinary. We're a small but mighty team, again, a nonprofit organization. So we have 3 watershed planning coordinators, one being myself, and we're fortunate to as well have 4 technicians and an executive director and communications. So with that, we are about to hit 25 years as an organization, and we have a very range of key responsibilities that include the State of the Watershed Assessment and Planning, Watershed Planning, Literacy and Education, as well as convening and collaborating. And in the kind of circle depicted in the graph there, that highlights how all of our various projects relate to our key directions. So as I'm sure you're aware, the large watershed that we all live in today is around 56,000 square kilometers and is the drinking water source, for over 1.5 million people. And within this kind of region here, a lot of people do depend on that for drinking water, but as well as the groundwater. And within the headwaters and to the middle reach and the downward reach, there is various land uses, I'm sure you're aware, from forestry as well as mining, and agriculture being a very dominant land use as well. And if you break down the watershed into more of a regional scale, you can see it doesn't always overlap very well with municipal boundaries. But again, there are large projects, but in my role, I do focus a little bit more on a lot of the regional scale. So we do have 3 sub-watershed alliances, one being the Sturgeon River Watershed Alliance. We also have a Headwaters Alliance, as well as a Vermilion River Watershed Alliance. These were brought to life through a State of the Watershed that was done in 2005 and is currently in the process of being updated. And these regions were highlighted as in need of some support. So that's how the sub-watershed alliances came to be. So I talk about, I'm going to boil down right to the sub-watershed alliances. So within my role, I am the facilitator and coordinator of the Sturgeon River Watershed Alliance. My career has definitely come full circle. I graduated from NAIT a while ago. And my first position was actually working for NAIT, doing the Sturgeon River Research Project. I live in the Sturgeon watershed out around Lac St. Anne Lake, so very devoted and passionate about this area. Next slide, thanks. So I wanted to touch on the watershed stewardship group that I do facilitate under the kind of NSWA umbrella, our Sturgeon River Watershed Alliance, touching on the history and where we are now today. And so as you can see, this is kind of the broken down watershed of the Sturgeon River. So Parkland County is actually the keeper of the headwaters, where it starts just west of Lake Isle, where there's Hoople Lake, and it turns into Sturgeon River. We are fortunate to have Lake Isle, Lac St. Anne, Devil's Lake, or also known as Machiel Lake, and Big Lake. And there's a lot of misconceptions about this river. It is just a simple kind of prairie-fed system. It relies on rainwater as well as snow melt. So it's not glacial-fed by any means. It's a very productive system, and we're fortunate to have very different varying sizes of municipalities. So we also have, of course, Lac St. Anne, Sturgeon County, and we're fortunate to also have the City of St. Albert, Stony Plains, Spruce Grove, and some smaller towns within there. So we have this group that comes together that is municipally supported, as well as we have fellow nonprofits such as the Wagner Natural Area, and we have government members that sit on this group as well. And so where we kind of started was in 2012, the City of St. Albert commissioned a State of the Watershed report. And within this report, it essentially gathered as much knowledge and information to give a big picture of where we at with the state of the health. So in doing so, they used certain indicators such as land use, water quality, and water quantity, and biological indicators. And within this assessment, it highlighted that the overall grade and condition of the Sturgeon River watershed is fair. So in looking at the land use all the way down to a lot of the vegetation types, a lot were highlighted as poor or insufficient data. And within the recommendations of this, to move forward, there was a point to establish a municipally led watershed group, fill information gaps by completing technical studies, and develop an integrated watershed management plan. I definitely need a drink. So, following the State of the Watershed report, the Sturgeon River Watershed Alliance was born. So in 2013, the municipally supported group established, and it partners with the North Saskatchewan Watershed Alliance. So we are guided by a steering committee made up of elected officials, such as yourselves, from across the watershed, so we have a great collective voice. And then we're fortunate to also have a technical advisory committee, which has different staff, from planners all the way to environmental coordinators, and again, fellow nonprofits, to kind of provide guidance and towards projects and kind of efforts going forward. And so since 2013, we've done immense amount of projects and research to not only fill knowledge gaps, but also provide guidance to municipalities, fellow groups on best management practices that promote the watershed health. So we've done the State of the Watershed report for Lake Isle and Lac St. Anne. We have done a riparian assessment, a groundwater assessment, and natural areas mapping. So this area is definitely dominated by agriculture, but 20% is still left in a natural state. So with that, we have secured around $500,000 in grants and look forward to doing more projects collectively. And building off of the 2012 State of the Watershed report, one of the recommendations was to complete a watershed management plan. So lots of work went into this document. The vision is that it is recognized and valued as a natural prairie river system that connects communities and adds to our quality of life. I definitely won't read that all to you, but it's within the watershed management plan that is available online. So highlighted within this document, again, it encompasses a watershed approach. So kind of that overarching holistic view. It has informed decision-making, clear goals and performance measures, and it is voluntary in nature. So whether you want to, take on action and implement certain short and long-term goals, that is definitely voluntary in nature, and definitely coordinates intermunicipal collaboration. So what have we been up to as a watershed stewardship group over the last few years? We were fortunate to have secured an Alberta Community Partnership grant where we were able to hold a road salt management workshop, which was really great. Road salt is definitely at the top of minds when we start to think of how chloride, which is a piece that comes off of road salt and actually just dilutes into the environment and does not dissipate. So we had lots of workshops to gain some kind of momentum on best practices and what other municipalities are doing, share knowledge. And we also had lots of in-person gatherings to discuss riparian setbacks around what other municipalities are doing and try and promote kind of the top tier of what we should be doing to promote watershed health. We also released a strategy to improve wetland management. We did a 2-year water quality monitoring study, and I just recently actually did a progress report of where we're at with implementation for the watershed management plan. And next slide. And I wanted to highlight some of the water quality information that came to light. So we hired a consultant that monitored certain points along the river and kind of the main stem as well as the tributaries, so the creeks that enter the system. So Parkland County, again, the keeper of the headwaters, and you guys are fortunate to also have Adam Creek follow through your guys' jurisdiction. So this highlights a lot of the parameters, so certain water quality features such as electric conductivity, pesticides, herbicides, E. coli, and many more, and where they exceeded freshwater guidelines for protection of aquatic life as well as irrigation. So there's definitely some hot spots that we noted within the water quality study. And next slide. And with the remaining funding from the Alberta Community Partnership Grant, we're able to do a conglomeration of water quality data that started to look at trends for some of these items. So a big one being phosphorus, again, a naturally productive system, but with more development, more differences in land use changes, we have seen phosphorus start to increase in parts of the river and actually decreasing in Adam Creek. So that's kind of some good news story there. And we definitely want to build off of this current understanding and how our land use is starting to influence the water quality and quantity within the Sturgeon River system. Next slide. So to date, I wanted to highlight the support that Parkland County has brought to the Sturgeon River Watershed Alliance. So it was really fun to actually delve into a lot of those items. So Since the SRWA came to fruition, Parkland County has been there. And not only on the steering committee, but as well as the technical committee. The past SRWA chair was former Parkland County Councillor, Annalisa Jensen. And yeah, wish Christina Kowalski, councillor, was here, but of course she's away for a little bit, but she is actually the current chair of the SRWA. And jumping into my next agenda item for my presentation is the overview of the Alberta Community Partnership Grant. So this is a grant that municipalities can apply to. So in essence, and as a fact, the Sturgeon River Watershed Alliance and the North Saskatchewan Watershed Alliance cannot apply to this grant, but the objective is to improve the viability and long-term sustainability of municipalities, whether it's through new or enhanced municipal services, improved municipal capacity, or effective intermunicipal relations. So a big relatable component that the SRWA sees fit within its group is the intermunicipal collaboration, as it definitely aligns with a lot of efforts and projects within our previous efforts. So the application deadline for the ACP grant of the IC is October 1st, 2024, with the maximum funding allowing per project being $200,000. Next slide, please. So within the ACP grant, there is a role for a managing partner. And the managing partner is the member that submits the grant application on behalf of the partnership, so on behalf of the Sturgeon River Watershed Alliance, and enters into the grant agreement with the ACP. So it is a Government of Alberta grant and receives the grant funds on behalf of the partnership. So if successful, the intermunicipal collaboration funded projects will receive an initial payment of 75% and the remainder released upon project completion. So over the last little bit, the Sturgeon River Watershed Alliance has been meeting online as well as in person to, again, discuss what's next for the group and what makes the most sense to kind of co-create a lot of different components that meet the different needs, as there's varying sizes of municipalities within the group. And to date, we have come up with the project title for an Alberta Community Partnership Grant, being the Sturgeon River Watershed Alliance Intermunicipal Watershed Planning Project. Within this project, we are wanting to complete two components. The first one being the Sturgeon River Watershed Water Quality Evaluation, to build off of the great work that has already been done in understanding the system, and further examination into trends, flow, and how actually our land uses are starting to change the water quality and what that means for the health of the ecosystem and the people and living things that rely on it. So it can further guide us into point source and non-point source assessments to better guide best management practice, not only for private landowners, but other organizations and of course municipalities. For the second component, we have the Infrastructure Management Framework for Watershed Health. This was a really great one that was put forth to highlight infrastructure hotspots. We had a report completed a while back that looked at watercourse crossings, so culverts that were impeding fish passage, but we wanted to build off of that great work and look at all the overlapping influences that may be occurring, such as flooding. Is there also poor water quality in some of these infrastructure hotspots? And how can we make it more visual and more applicable to municipalities? So we would build together some workshops where we would get people together from across the watershed in a classroom as well as a field setting to not only discuss best management practices and approaches that could feed into the framework, but also get people on the ground visiting these sites and talking and discussing what is the best way to make these areas more sustainable, monitor them, and of course address these concerns going forward. Next slide, please. And kind of circling back, so how does that all relate back to the watershed management plan as we look to implement the goals as well as the strategies within this document? So the project as well as the components relate strongly with outcome 3 within the watershed management plan, which is aquatic ecosystems, including our rivers, lakes, wetlands, and other water bodies are healthy. And the second component relates deeply with outcome 5, Wise land use ensures that cumulative effects of growth and development are mitigated, the land is resilient to climate change, and individuals and communities are well prepared for flood and drought events. Thank you. And with that, I wanted to thank you for your time again, and hope that was somewhat informative. And yeah, you were able to grab something from that. And yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you very much for the presentation, and we will first of all look to go back to the beginning. Councillor Weidman for the motion, then open it up for questions and discussion. We'll also note to Council that we will be moving to item 6D1, which relates to the grant application support immediately after this motion. Thank you.
Okay. So the proposed motion is that the Sturgeon River Watershed Alliance presentation be received for information as presented. I have a couple comments. I find a lot of times that we get into all these different organizations asking for money from the province or from the municipalities. And I've been around for a while. I've been on the NSWA, I've been on the River Valley Alliance, Waldman Watershed, whatever it was before that. We need to start, I guess, getting some action. We've got Mayatan Association, we've got JLMA, we've got Waldman and Sturgeon, and we're studying and studying, but we don't seem to be able to solve anything. And I understand what you're trying to do and the impacts of development. That's great. I think we understand a lot of the impacts from development, and sometimes planning, I think, recognizes that and tries to put things forward that won't impede lakes and rivers. But I think we need to start pooling our resources, and we need to start causing some action that's going to make water quality better. We're just still studying, and I see this all over. So from somebody that's been on a lot of these organizations, Waldman especially, most studied lake in North America, one of the most, we need to start seeing some action. We're losing water, we can't have interbasin transfers, and usually dilution is the solution. There is no other way. You know, we can change the way we grow, but that's not happening quick enough. So that's my comments.
So I wear a few different hats. So not only as the coordinator of the Sturgeon River Watershed Alliance, but my role also includes regional lakes. So we are actually part of the Lake Stewardship Community of Practice, which is a provincial momentum hosted by the Alberta Lake Management Society. So again, being able to have that collaborative momentum, learning from each other, what's working, what's not working when it comes to either monitoring or even restoration, some more actionable things for sure. And I'm also on LILSA, so the Lake Isle Lac St. Anne Stewardship Society. I also coordinate the Waldman Watershed Management Plan Implementation Steering Committee. So we have a meeting coming up here in October. We definitely are talking about water quality. That is a hot topic. And we also are fortunate to have a lot of the summer villages sit on that, TransAlta, as well as Alberta Environment and Protected Areas. So there is different entities that not only work independently, but cohesively to, again, share that knowledge. Because, again, lots of things have been done, and there is that want to do more. So I was fortunate to secure some funding over the last little bit to implement 2 restoration projects that were completed at Wizard Lake, as well as I completed one at Lac St. Anne Lake to have a restoration demonstration site. So a lot of the land use around lakes is predominantly privately owned. So being able to have a site where people can come to, learn about native plants, shoreline health is, I think, an essential piece, not only for education, but that knowledge transfer.
Thank you. Questions, Councillor Burney?
Thank you, Ms. Norton, for that. I always find your presentations, and when I sat on the Waldman Watershed, were always so informative. You are a plethora of information. And yes, there are a lot of studies done and have been done for years, but we need these studies to be done over years to watch the changes. And there are certain things that are being done, like salt. We realize that, those aren't good and they're coming. So I do appreciate all you do, and I fully support going ahead for this grant. I think that more and more information brings us together, and I love the fact that you're all pooling each other together, you're working together, all this information comes together. So I appreciate what you're doing, and I just say keep it up, please.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments, debate? Again, we do appreciate the information you brought forward and the work that you're doing to steward our waterways. Much appreciated. I will call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you for coming in today. We'll also now move to item 6D1, which is the Alberta Partnership Grant Application on behalf of Sturgeon River Watershed Alliance. We have two proposed motions. I'll look to Councillor Kubasiak for the first proposed motion. 6D1, yeah.
61. The first proposed motion is that administration be directed to apply for the Alberta Community Partnership ACP grant application on behalf of the Sturgeon River Watershed Alliance to enable further implementation of the Sturgeon River Management Plan as presented.
All right, thank you. Any questions, comments, debate? Councillor Weedman?
So I guess this goes back on what I said earlier. I'll support it because it's a provincial grant, but I think that we need to get all of these groups together so that we can do a little bit more with what we have, because we're all spread out all over the place and trying to get that little bit of money. The taxpayers' money is limited, and, you know, this is provincial taxpayers' money, I guess, but in the end, it comes back down to the taxpayer. So if this was municipally supported, I would not support it. It's provincial. We need to start pooling resources because we're not getting anywhere the way we are now, the way we're operating. But I'll support this because it's a provincial grant.
All right, thank you. Any other further questions, comments, debate? I will call the question. All in favor? Motion carried unanimously. Proposed motion number 2, Councillor Kuchar-Johnson, please.
That administration be directed to provide SRWA a letter of support for the ACP grant application.
Great, thank you. Motion before us. Questions, comments, debate? We'll call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. And again, thank you for coming in. We will now recess until 10:30 a.m. Thank you. Welcome back all. We're going to reconvene our council meeting at 10:33 a.m. We're going to move on to item 5.1, which is bylaw 2024-17, amending bylaw 2020-08, wastewater. I will turn that over direct to Mr. McGowan for introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. We have Neil Jameson, the Director of Public Works, here to present bylaw 2024-17 for our third and final reading. Neil will present the bylaw and we'll be prepared to answer any questions that council may have. So with that, I'll hand things over to Neil.
Thank you, Mr. McGowan. Good morning, council. Before you, as mentioned, was third reading of bylaw 2024-17, amending bylaw for 2020-08, the wastewater bylaw. On June 25th, 2024, both first and second readings were approved for the proposed amending bylaw 2024-17. Third reading did not receive unanimous consent at the meeting, so third reading was presented to council on July 10th. At the July 10th special council meeting, council tabled third reading to September 10th. Due to the strong opposition from haulers having a county-installed GPS system in their vehicles, administration is recommending that bylaw 2024-17 be defeated at third reading so that additional options can be presented to council for consideration. Once these options are presented and direction has been received, a new bylaw will be drafted for review and approval by council. So we're expecting to bring some additional options to council probably early October at this point. So with that, we're open for questions.
Great, thank you. Well, first of all, put the motion forth. I get Councillor Burney for the motion, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, that bylaw 2024-17 received third and final reading. And I guess I just have a comment on that. How many options are we looking at? How many different options?
There are a number of options, but I think we can try and synthesize them down to about 4 key ones that we'll be presenting to council. Yeah.
Questions, comments, debate? I'll certainly, say I want to commend administration. This has certainly been a complex issue with regard to an allocation of cost that comes from the wastewater commission relative to overstrength charges. And our intent with this is simply to try and mitigate the risk and the cost that has been accumulating that is affecting all residents of Parkland County, and recognizing that there's the haulers and there's the residents and there are those with holding tanks and those with the heavy septic tanks. And this is a very complex issue. So I just want to say thank you for working through this and trying to understand it from everyone's perspective, but the ultimate goal of ensuring that residents' tax rates are not impacted or continue to bear risk relative to an allocation that we're receiving from the wastewater commission. So those are my comments, and I will be following administration's recommendation and defeating this motion. Thank you. Councillor Kapasiak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Appreciate your comments, and I will take the same action. When I'm looking at this issue, we've had a couple of opportunities for discussion, and we've had input from haulers and some options. So I appreciate that we're looking at making this workable and that there will be something further coming forward next month. When I stepped back and I looked at the issue, I thought, how does this address the problem? We had some readings that were suggested are inaccurate from Arrow with regard to overstrength, and we're trying to address that. So I understand we're looking at holding tanks going to Stony Plain, sewer going to Villeneuve, if that's correct. So the fluids are separated, but then they end up going into one system. And they're going on a highway. I understand that we're looking at taking this to Edmonton. We have lagoons in Tomahawk and Entwistle, and there are funding options, there are grant options where we could look at something similar closer in this area, because I don't know how that really helps with the extra hauling going to Edmonton to deal with this. So that's going to help with the environment for us and overall addressing this issue. So I was hoping for some, clearer solutions, because I think when you start adding up this extra hauling and this traffic on our roads and whatnot, I just see myself and other residents who have septic systems just bearing a huge increase in cost, because the local business people are going to have to pass it somewhere. Parkland County still has the issue of overstrength. That's what we have to address. That's where we started from, and I'm hoping that we can get back to that point. So appreciate your options, offer to look at options again today. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further questions, comments? Councillor Weedman?
Yeah, thanks for the recommendation, and you guys know where I stand on this. I hope that we consult with the haulers somehow, some way, before we come up with these recommendations in the future. The other thing I'd like to see is maybe if your department would put together a brief for our representative on the wastewater commission so that we can bring this forward at one of their meetings so that we can talk some common sense into them. The way we're being tested and being billed is the issue here, not so much the bylaw where I realize we have to come back with something, but that's the issue here, and I don't think it's fair. I think that unfortunately we've been singled out for whatever reason, or it's just our type of waste. I'm not sure why it's not happening to other municipalities. I understand Leduc's issue, but the other ones. So anyway, that's my comments. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any further comments, questions, debate? And before we vote, I will just advise that administration's recommendation is to defeat the motion, and council can certainly vote how they would like to and proceed that way. So the proposed motion in front of us, all those in favor? Those that are opposed?
Oh, sorry, I voted wrong. I mean, to defeat it. Just ask a question.
So I'll ask the question again. Those in favor? I'll try a third time. Those in favor? I'll try a fourth time. Those in favor? Those opposed?
You need to read it twice.
Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Jameson. Let's move on. Item 6C1, request to rescind policy EN 015, purchase of lands for municipal and public use. And to Mr. McGowan for introduction, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Jody Hancock and Matthew are here to present the policy 24-2 is a request to rescind the policy EN 015, the purchase of lands for municipal public use. And so with that, I'll hand things over to the guys, and we'll be happy to answer any questions that council may have.
So as Rob stated, we're here, the proposed motion that council rescind policy EN 15, purchase of lands for municipal and public use. Policy EN 015, as we have reviewed, is outdated and in direct conflict with a newly approved and accepted directive ALM 01. Policy EN 015 has been reviewed and determined that the information found within is outdated and redundant given the acceptance of this new directive.
Okay, we are back to Councillor Weedman for the motion, please.
So the motion is that council will rescind policy EN 015, purchase of lands for municipal and public use.
Thank you. Motion before us. Questions, comments, debate? I will call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Thank you. Let's move on to item 6C2, Fire Response Cost Recovery Policy FD08. I'll look to Mr. Cross for introduction, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. With us this morning, we have Chief Brian Cornforth and Deputy Fire Chief Rob Malchow. They're here to present Policy FD08, Fire Response Recovery Policy. This policy was before Governance and Priorities Committee back in May, June of this year, and it's here before you today for discussion and decision and hopefully approval. With that, I'll turn things over to the gentlemen here for their presentation. They'd be pleased to answer any questions council may have after their presentation. Thank you.
Good morning, Mayor and Council, and we're back with our fire response cost recovery policy, and we brought this forward to you earlier in the year. And this is really to align to what the fire services in Alberta have been doing for the last few years. So what we'll cover today on the agenda is the purpose, the policy statement, some standards, our responsibilities both from the residential and commercial side, appeal process sample of what our typical invoices would look like, and our cost recovery plan, and a little bit about communications with residents before we roll this out, and hopefully your support on the policy. The purpose of the policy is to focus on the realistic recovery of cost where applicable and appropriate. And of course, with any policy, we always are here to review with council any considerations or feedback, both from residents as well as from council as well. The policy statement and scope is really to focus on, we've created a new fire bylaw that allows for our, I should say, supports our continued ability to bill for services. And it's really to make sure we support the operations of fire services, but also help folks adjust some of their behaviors where there's appropriate actions that they could have taken to prevent a wildfire or an incident, that we can adjust some of the behaviors in burning while bans are on, or these type of things. And it will cover the typical costs that we respond to. And it's not to be a revenue stream, as I mentioned earlier in the year in the presentation. This isn't to create a budget line of revenue. This is really to support changes in behavior and also the potential risk for some of our major wildfire costs in the future. The standard we will follow will be billing for motor vehicle collisions and fires. So we do a lot of activity on numbered highways today, and we bill Alberta Transportation for those services. This will allow us to bill on range roads and township roads, and this is directly goes to the automobile insurance. We'll be using a third party for recoveries. I'll talk about that in a bit. We also respond to structure fires, and we have a minimum and that we will bill for structure fires. It's actually built into most residential policies, and where that isn't to the residents' insurance, we won't bill. Outdoor fires, again, that's the wildfires that we've seen either through actions or deliberate actions that someone had ignored a burning ban or high winds and we had to respond. Those costs can be fairly substantial, and I'll talk to those in a few minutes. Public assist calls, where we have folks that unleash their dog in leashed areas and the dog runs over the ravine into the valley and we end up doing a rescue. That does take some specialized training, and we want to support that. And we have been, under our old bylaw, billing for false alarms. And that's really, a lot of our activity is non-emergent. We're responding to these events and there are no fire. It's either an operator error or a system malfunction. To talk to the responsibilities, the position of fire chief or the designate will manage and monitor the billing process. And we will, as I mentioned, use a third party for collections. So we're not adding any FTEs to do this recoveries. We'll be using a third party to do the collections, and that's a shared recovery of those costs. We'll coordinate with our team and ledge services for any appeals. And we'll be monitoring and providing you feedback on some of the appeals as part of our key performance indicators over the year. If there's any appeals that we are misaligned on what's appropriate, I'm sure you will pass that on to us as well. The appeal process will be under $1,000, will be at the office of the fire chief and within 30 days of the receipt. And of course, that's just a timeline for people to apply to us for an appeal. The final decision on those $1,000 will be the fire chief position, and then above those, of course, would be yourselves. Some samples of the invoice cost, and you may have seen these before and you're familiar with some of the major wildfires. We had a spring fire this year that actually will be around the $70,000 or $73,000 mark. That was for shared resources from forestry, our own staff, as well as some work we needed to do over several days to manage a wildfire. So that typical outside wildfire could be upwards of 7,000. That would be an average of it going over a couple of hectares and us managing it and containing it within a few hectares. Structure fire, we can go up to $11,000 in resources, and that's contained to one structure. Motor vehicle collision, typically we see it around the $1,500 mark, and that's covered by the automobile vehicle insurance. Public assist, the cat in the tree. So the non-life threatening, but obviously sensitive to animals, and that type of things, like horses in swimming pools. We've had 2 of those rescues. So those are the ones where we'll be providing billing as well. And then the public assist, where we have to do rope rescue from actions from either unaware of the hazard or ignorance of the hazard, ignoring the hazard. Next slide, please. As I said, we'll be doing it through a third-party cost recovery, and we'll be monitoring that for sensitivity of that third party's ability to do those collections, that it's done in an appropriate, respectful manner. And the public communications will work with our communications team on communicating this policy if it goes through, that residents may see billing. And as comparatively, we see that across Alberta, similar departments are doing this, so we're hoping to learn from their experiences on communicating that outwardly to the public through those open houses and our attendance at any public sessions. We've had great feedback through the Fire Smart program, and we have lots of interface time with the public there, and providing this piece of information would be useful to them. And today we're here to request for a decision the acceptance of the policy as drafted, and we will move that to a finalized policy. Open to any questions. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Chief and Deputy Chief. We'll look to Councillor Kubassiak for the motion, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Move that the fire response cost recovery policy FD08 be approved as presented.
Great, thank you. And we have seen this along the way, so we are well versed. Any questions, comments, debate? Councillor Weidman.
With regards to recoveries on and accident scenes on provincial highways, what's the standard now? You're billing the province, and then is the insurance companies tending to pay, or who pays?
Through the chair to Councillor Weidman, that's paid through by the insurance company, and that sometimes is where if it's a minor accident, you have your deductible, you may want to pay that directly, so that's obviously an option given to them, but that's done through the Alberta Transportation third-party billing group, and you can pay directly for that. Sometimes we'll get a phone call from the vehicle owner saying, why am I getting billed? And we provide them a detailed description of what we did on scene there. So that's done through your insurance, but some folks don't opt to use that in their insurance because it obviously affects their overall premium, and they may pay that directly through the third party to Alberta Transportation.
Are we getting paid from Alberta Transportation fairly quickly then, or is it held up? Or?
Through the chair to Councillor Weidman, yes, they're very good about their invoicing. So we create the invoice at our level. It goes into that system with Alberta Transportation, and we are paid within a month. And our revenues are about $350,000 for the corridors, Highway 16, and all the other numbered highways. So it's a large revenue piece for us as well.
Councillor Burney, then Councillor Kubassiak, please.
Thank you for that presentation. So I'm just wondering if in the invoicing we are accounting for the third-party charges as well. You're saying it's a shared cost. They charge something. Are we charging enough to cover their cost?
Through the chair to Councillor Burney. So those numbers I showed you are the cost net. So after that is they'll take their deduction of that, and I don't know, we haven't negotiated with a third-party collection agency what their portion of that invoice would be, but it will not be that total amount to us. They will take their deduction on that.
Councillor Kubassiak.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just, we're looking at this policy, and it's an attempt to, as the purpose is to establish cost recovery standards. I'm looking at insurance and how this affects communities, how it affects residents. Maybe just a reflection on your part. You're trying to work with the government to try to, have some guidance, have a system where we can, address rising costs and rising issues with municipalities in partnership with the government. What kind of a reflection do you have on this in terms of your, firefighters group and you're working with the government?
Through the chair to Councillor Kubassiak, we have been working with our group with the rural municipalities to take a look at these major wildfire events to see what's reasonable in costs and mitigation efforts that need to be made. We know the insurance industry is looking at this very closely. You will see in the U.S. they've already said in certain areas where you have a residential home in a wildfire-prone area, you will have a difficult time seeking insurance. So we expect that here as of the recent events in Jasper. The difference is the communities that we're seeing this major impact, for example, Jasper, the wildfire was on the periphery of the community boundary. Our residential units are actually embedded in many of our vegetated forested areas, which is why we live in the county, and it's why I live in the county. So we have to come to some reasonable response to adjusting that, helping residents understand what their fire smart risks are, and provide education. So on that working committee with our Rural Municipal Association, we're doing a lot of discussion around education and working with our planning team here at Parkland County and educating planners when we introduce a subdivision into an area that's a high risk, if you will, fuel type, that we do mitigation practices to minimize the risks. If there is one house fire, it doesn't go into a wildfire situation, we lose many properties. So that's kind of the difference we're seeing. We hope the insurance industry is more alert to that. As I said earlier, it's not about a revenue stream, it's really about education and helping people participate more actively in minimizing hazards at their local home front or minimizing their risks in business by doing fire inspections and prevention visits to them. Hopefully that's helpful for you.
Yeah, that's sort of an overall perspective that I'm looking at. I know as a result of all the experience and all the Crown land and the public land in BC, they have a lot of experience because of the firestorms that happened in Kelowna, as an example. I know that there was issue with regard to high-risk areas and certain, shingles on roof, what type of shingles, what type of forestry, and ability to get insurance and how much you're going to pay for those premiums. So it's going to fall back on community, and municipalities are trying to work in partnership, and it's a growing major issue. So I appreciate the reflection. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any further questions, comments, debate? I will call the question. All in favor? The motion is carried unanimously. Thank you for joining us today. Let's move on. Item 6C3, Council Member Vacancy, Division 6, Parkland County. I'll turn it over to Mr. Dyke for introduction.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. In October 2021, 6 members of council were elected as well as a chief elected official. With regret, Parkland County experienced a council member vacancy in Division 6 as of August 10th, 2024. Provision of the Municipal Government Act, Section 162, allows for the municipality to carry out the elected official's duties in absence of the council member. A by-election for Parkland County is not required in accordance with the Municipal Government Act. Councillor duties and support for Division 6 will continue by the 6 elected officials of Parkland County from August 11th, 2024 to the next scheduled general municipal election in October 20th, 2025. With that, the proposed motion is before council for consideration.
Hey, thank you, Mr. Dyke. Councillor Kuchar-Johnson for the motion, please.
That elected official duties for Division 6 be delegated to the mayor and member of council for the term of August 11, 2024 to October 27, 2025 for the vacancy of Division 6 member of council.
Thank you. Motion before us, and just a comment related to the loss that many of us have experienced with our colleague and great friend. There was a celebration of life for Councillor Hoofsloot on September 5th in Tomahawk, and certainly a tremendous service was attended by 250 people and 850 online. So Alan was a wonderful friend and touched the lives of many, and certainly knew who his friends were, and he was just a brilliant man. So that's obviously a loss, and we'll definitely pull our socks up and represent his residents, hopefully nearly as well as Alan did. So that is the intent of the remaining members of council. Those are my comments. Any further comments, questions? I will call the question. All in favor? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Let's move on. Item 6F1, 2024 Tax Recovery Public Auction Reserve Bids. I will look to... Did I miss one?
Mr. Mayor, we did have one addition to the agenda, 6C4.
There is a 6C4, which is the request to cancel the September 17th Governance and Priorities meeting. 17th, yeah. Okay, so we'll look to Councillor Bernie for the motion, please.
Do we have that motion written, but we don't, just so move to cancel the September 27th, 2024 GPC meeting?
17th?
Did I say just 17th or 27th?
17th.
17th, okay.
Okay, motion is before us. Questions, comments? We'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Now let's move on to 6F1, which is the 2024 Tax Recovery Public Auction Reserve Bids. Over to Mr. Dyke for introduction, please.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Ms. Kirchmeier is here to present the matter to council.
Good morning, Mayor, members of council. Before you today is the 2024 Tax Recovery Public Auction Bids. The Municipal Government Act stipulates that council must set a reserve bid that is as close as reasonably possible to the market value of each parcel of land and conditions that apply to the sale. Conditions of the sale for this auction were approved earlier this year at the May 2nd council meeting. Should payments be received prior to the auction, administration will remove the property from the auction list. We have received payment for 3 of the properties on this list, so they will be removed. Administration continues to work diligently with all property owners. Past efforts by administration have been successful, with the past auctions seeing only 1 to 4 of these properties actually make it to the auction. The proposed motion before you today is that council approve the reserve bids for the properties being offered for sale at the public auction on Wednesday, September 25th, 2025 at 3 p.m. 2024, sorry.
Great, thank you, Ms. Kirchmeier. We'll look to Councillor Weidman for the motion, please.
Council approve the reserve bids for properties that being offered for sale at the public auction Wednesday, September 25th at 3 p.m. Well, it says 2023 there, as presented. So we change that date to 2025, or 2024.
So you read it incorrectly as
Yeah.
2024. So that is the motion that is before us. Questions, comments, debate from council?
Do we want to clarify what properties are left there?
I can give you the update on that. So on the attachment, the first property, the Lakeside Park at 4.6 acres, that has been removed. Further down the list, the one in the subdivision, Sundance Meadows at 12,688 square feet, that one has been removed. And the designated manufactured home, the last one on that list, valued at 102,600, that one has also been removed.
Thank you, and thank you for the clarification. Any questions, comments, debate? I will call the question. All in favor? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Let's move on. Item 6G1, funding request, bridge file 00110, Range Road 271, 900 meters south of Township Road 534. And we will look for an introduction to Mr. Hancock. Thank you.
My Paul. Go ahead.
Sorry, I just thought maybe I will introduce Mr. Hancock for the second time this meeting. Jody Hancock is the Director of Engineering Services, and he's prepared to present a request for funding for bridge file 00110. And so with that, I'll hand things over to Jody, and we'll answer any questions that council may have. Jody.
Thank you, Mr. McGowan. To the Mayor and member of council. This bridge file 00110 is located on Range Road 271, 900 meters south of Township 534. And if we can pull up the image, that might help. I believe it would be attachment number 2 would be the good one to show. of where this is in relation to the county as I speak. So administration supports supports the proposed motion that bridge file 00110, and I'll just refer to it as the bridge. The bridge was closed in July 2024 due to a failed inspection report. Funding for the approval of the design would provide administration the opportunity to advance the project forward in 2024 for design, and construction advanced forward as well into 2025. As part of our annual scheduled work activities, administration completes bridge inspections across the county. We follow the province's Bridge Inspection and Maintenance, or BIM, program. During the July 2nd, 2024 inspection of the bridge, we identified that the bridge had deteriorated beyond operational limits and must be rehabilitated or replaced prior to reopening. The bridge is a single-span bridge built in 1962. The average lifespan for this type of bridge or type of structure is between 40 and 50 years, so it's well beyond its expected life cycle. Administration reported it as a low advisory rating in the BIM program annually since at least 2020. So what happens with these inspections is when they're brand new, they're on a 5-year cycle, they go down to a 3-year cycle, and then a 1-year cycle as the bridge deteriorates. And this bridge is at the top of the list for bridges that are needing replacement, and we've known that since 2020. At the time of approval in the 2024 to 2027 capital infrastructure program, the bridge was scheduled for design in 2025, construction 2026. Given the current rating and the recent condition assessment from the summer, we are recommending that the design process be advanced into the 2024 calendar year. This will allow time to review options and determine near-term action items. Administration will also endeavor to recover costs through the Strategic Infrastructure Transportation Program, the STIP program, which is the identified funding source for bridge files. Administration is already engaged in conversations with Alberta Transportation and Economic Corridors. There is no emergency repair allocations in the STIP program. However, they have identified that they would consider, given the special circumstances with this project, the potential for recovery after the fact. So typically you have to have the funding in place prior to starting work. Because we have alerted them of our current situation, they have identified they will consider advancing work and funding that in 2025 as a recovery option. Again, that's still open and unapproved, but we will be pushing that forward with the province in 2025 applications. We've identified 4 potential options to deal with the situation that we have. Option 1 is the recommended option, which is, as I've been speaking, fast-tracking the design into 2024 for a new bridge and advanced construction in 2025. This may require deferral of planned construction in 2025. And when I wrote this, I said may require, it will require deferral of a different project in 2025 that we had otherwise planned. So this bridge will remain closed until a new bridge is in place under this option. Design will be completed over the next 6 months and construction advanced as early as possible. Given the location of this site, which is on the Adam Creek floodplain or Adam Creek Basin area leading into Big Lake, there is high degree of sensitivity for environmental reasons. It's a fish-bearing stream, and activities under the Water Act and the Fisheries Act will limit access until late summer 2025 to initiate construction in the stream bed in the water. There is some limited risk with the timing of environmental approvals, but we think we have sufficient time to fast-track the schedule and be ready to construct as early as we can in summer 2025. This is a permanent repair, so STIP grant funding does apply, subject to provincial approval, and as I mentioned, we will seek funding including the design that we're asking for today. Option 2 is pursuing a temporary bridge option. This would be installed on top of the existing bridge. It would be narrow. It would likely be single lane traffic, but it would provide a means to get across the creek or across the waterway now. It would maintain the schedule for design in 2025 and construction 2026. The bridge would remain closed until the temporary bridge is in place. This will take a minimum of 3 months to procure the bridge, to put it into place and make sure that everything is in order to open it up to traffic. This can be done in winter conditions. The temporary bridge purchase would cost approximately $175,000. STIP grant funding does not apply, as this is a temporary repair, not a permanent repair. The temporary bridge could be relocated and reused on other structures in the event that we have unplanned closures similar to this location. I will also note that this option, while we have the bridge closed now, the temporary bridge would be placed when it came time to construct, whether that's the summer of 2025 or the summer of 2026. During the construction process, we would remove the temporary bridge and initiate a full closure again. So it would be closed now, it'd be opened for a short period of time, and then it would be fully closed again, which may be more disruptive or may be helpful. I'll let council mull that over. Option 3 is fast track the design into 2024 of interim bridge repairs, complete a short-term fix to buy time. This would be 1 to 3 years of time that would be expended. We would maintain the schedule for permanent replacement, design in 2025 and construction in 2026. Bridge would remain closed until the interim repairs. Essentially what we would be doing is we would pull off the top of the bridge. We would look at the underneath structure of the bridge, investigate and do some temporary repairs to maintain the stability of the structure. The interim repairs are estimated at about $150,000. STIP grant funding would not apply as it is a temporary fix and there are no cost recovery for interim repairs. What we will identify too is that this is the highest risk option, and that if we take the top of the bridge off and we investigate it and find there are more problems than what we can see from the outside looking in, we may not be able to go forward with the temporary repairs that we're suggesting. So again, we would invest some money to determine and to build a plan to open it short-term for a period of 1 to 3 years. It would still need to be closed during permanent construction. So again, the same scenario as the temporary bridge. We would open it for a period of time and then we would have to reclose it. Option 4 is do nothing, leave the bridge closed, maintain the schedule. That's the easiest one for administration, but likely the most disruptive to residents. It is in the 2024 to 2027 capital infrastructure program as design 2025, construct 2026. Regardless of what year the construction occurs, administration anticipates the roadway must be closed for construction, as I've mentioned. Interim improvements, options 2 and 3, will be removed prior to the construction activities. The bridge may be reopened following the repairs. However, the detours will still be in place during construction. There is no option for a temporary detour. If you can bring up the second or the attachment number 3. You can see in the image, it is within a wetland on both north and south side of the bridge area. It'd be highly disruptive to the natural environment area to try to construct a temporary crossing through this location. You can see multiple side streams and wherever else. The straight east-west connection is where the bridge is. We do not see it as a cost-effective option for a detour route, and we do have some environmental concerns with the temporary crossing. The overall impact to area residents is not deemed to be significant. However, there is one landowner immediately north of the bridge, and in this image it would be northwest of the bridge crossing location, that is directly impacted. That resident has informed administration that an extended timeline for this detour or for the closure is not acceptable, and there is a request for a more immediate action. The increased distance of travel is less than 2 kilometers, 900 meters to the north and then 900 meters to come back south versus the alternative of exiting the property and going straight south to whichever destination that individual would like to go. I am also of the understanding that council has been forwarded, mayor and council have been forwarded an email. The gentleman was not able to attend today, but has forwarded his thoughts and his comments, and hopefully that's been shared with council, and you have that available to you for further understanding. So that's the summary of the discussion. The cost that we're looking for, the funding that we're looking for is $150,000 to be funded through the Canada Community Building Fund, and the motion is in front of council for questions and debate.
Great, thank you. And just for clarification, council has been presented with 4 options. The motion relates to option number 1. And for confirmation, council has received the correspondence from the residents, and we do have that and have reviewed that information. So look to Councillor Kubasiak for the motion, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I did receive the information as well, and appreciate the comments that were made, and precedent has been set. Just before I put the motion on the floor, I understand that we did proceed with option 2. I don't know, we had an issue out west in Parkland County. We did proceed with option number 2 as a preferred option. And the argument of the rationale is that we've done that previously, it's been successful, it was workable in the community, and that we would consider option 2 again as per this communication. Could you just comment on that before I put the motion on the floor?
Yes, certainly to Councillor Kubasiak through the mayor. We do have a bridge structure that is in the county that does have a temporary bridge structure placed on top. There are a few different strategies that we deploy. If the bridge deck itself is deteriorated, but it's structurally sound, we will put rig mats on top of the deck. That helps distribute the load and keeps the structure or the bridge available for continued use. The bridge structure that we did put the temporary bridge on, we ordered a single span, 1-lane bridge, and have put that on top of an existing bridge. And again, that distributes the load across the bridge, keeps the weight on the foundations of the bridge, and allowed for us to gain 4 to 5 years worth of time to get the design and the construction completed. The bridge in question is in the Wagner gravel pit area. It was a gravel haul route for gravel pit. So again, it has 100-ton capacity. So there's structures out there that are available to do that kind and type of work. The bridge that would be pushed back in timeline by advancing this bridge is that bridge. So that bridge is supposed to be constructed in 2025, and we would push that bridge that already has a temporary structure back to 2026. There are slight nuances and slight differences in that this particular bridge was an aggregate resource pit that the county was using and that other landowners relied upon for business commercial operations. It was a dead-end road, and there were 0 alternative options for access to the area.
So in the case of this bridge south of 534, I guess your comment on, the recommendation is to go with option 1. The concern from resident in the area is to look at option 2. If you could just maybe, you've given some background there, but would option 2 be workable in this case?
We did review, to Councillor Kubasiak, we did review that as a viable option. Our question that we would have to put in front of council is that $175,000 expenditure, is that the choice that we want to make here? That's non-recoverable. Yes, we would have that bridge to use in different locations, but there's also disruptions that will occur. We would still be closed until the time that we could get that in place. That would take us roughly 3 months. If we got direction today, it would be December, January before that bridge would be opened. It would be there for about 6 months, and then we would be looking at removing that bridge, transporting it to a location somewhere in the county, probably one of our gravel pits or an open space area that we own on county lands, and then you would have the closure in place again. So the temporary bridge structure isn't buying a 4 to 5 year time frame like the other bridge. This is buying 6 months of time.
Okay, so Mr. Chair, with that, I'd be prepared to put the recommendation forward, given the explanation here, that council approve $150,000 in Canada Community Building funding to complete design work for bridge file 00110 as presented.
Great, thank you. Motion before us. Questions, comments, debate? Councillor Bernie?
Thank you, Mr. Hancock, for that explanation. I did read through all of your rationale and your options here, and I will be supporting this. It does make the most sense to me. We can get cost recovery. I know, well, a bad bridge is an inconvenience for all, but as I see it, this is the best option moving forward. So thank you for that presentation.
Councillor Weedman?
So option 2, if you bought a temporary bridge, You've already got another temporary at the south end of the county or at the west end of the county? Is that correct?
That is correct.
You'll be stuck with 2 bridges then?
Correct.
You probably don't need 2 bridges?
Ideally, again, if this report came out next year or the year after, we would have a bridge sitting in our gravel pit and we'd be able to pull it off. So it wouldn't incur this additional $175,000. We'd be able to use our existing asset. It does raise concerns, and Mr. McGowan and I were talking about this previously, to move that bridge to a county site and then to put it back into place in a roadway, we would still need to go through an exercise of structural review. We'd have to have a structural engineer sign off on it to make sure that it's mechanically sound or structurally sound to go and put it back into place. This bridge also is a little bit longer than the one that we have in place as well. So even the bridge that we currently have that's in use, I'm not sure that it would be long enough to put at this location.
Okay, and then are we just going to cast in place bridges? Are we not building structures that we can haul in and just put in place, or is that typical?
We will review those through the design process. We look at 4 or 5 different options. We don't rule out culverts necessarily at this point. In most bridge files, this one, because of the waterway and the significance of the location, we would not go to a culvert application, but we would look at 2 or 3 different bridge designs that would best fit this location.
I'm talking about a structure that's already pre-built and you just move it on.
Yeah, in 2021, we did do a precast or a pre-built structure that we moved into place. So again, we moved the bridge and put the new bridge in within 2 weeks. That created some different challenges for us, and that the bridge didn't necessarily meet the landowner satisfaction because it was a little bit narrow and had higher sidewalls that created different challenges.
Okay, and then you're talking about buying bridges, not renting them, the temporary ones?
We have done a cost analysis on the rental price per month and the duration that it would be in place. The recommendation would be to purchase. At least at the end of the day, if we purchase it, we have an asset. If we rent, then we pay the money and we have no asset.
Great, thank you. Just some comments. I appreciate the options that you've laid out for council, and I support the option that you've recommended for the reasons. Ultimately, as an adjacent resident, I understand the support for option number 2. However, the $175,000 would be a cost to Parkland County all, and I don't see that it's going to be covered under the STIP funding, so it's an additional cost to residents. But I also, for the resident, I appreciate the fast track. So this is something that we're moving up in the schedule to accommodate, so I recognize that. And for Parkland County as a whole, I support option number 1. Thank you. Any further questions, comments, debate? I will call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried unanimously.
Mr. Chair, just on this matter, I don't know if I need a motion or if we just to direct administration. I think we need to add these updated details that impact to Parkland County that are imposed by bridge failures and funding shortfalls to the provincial government. I know this has been a push by our provincial association, and so we've got further impact, we've got further example here, and silence is acceptance. This causes hardship to municipalities. It's a significant amount of money, and we need to keep this detailed in front of the provincial government. So maybe just a direction to administration to add these details and this impact to government. Okay, thank you.
Certainly, thank you. Let's move on. Item 6G2, funding request for preliminary and detailed design of 261st Street, south of 114th Avenue. I'll look to Mr. McGowan for introduction. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The next item, we have Jody Hancock, Director of Engineering Services here again, and he's prepared to present the funding request for the preliminary and detailed design for 261st Street in Atchison. And I'll just ask Mr. Hancock if he can go through the submissions fairly quick. We have an 11 o'clock appointment that's in camera, and so we're a little bit behind schedule. So, but yes, certainly provide all the information for council, and with that, I'll hand things over to Jody.
Thank you, Mr. McGowan. If we could put attachment 1 up, that would be great, project area. So looking at the funding request, the proposed motion is for council to approve $100,000 of future capital restricted surplus in 2024 for the preliminary detailed design of 261 Street south of 114th Avenue. Funding for this project and advancing it into 2024 allows administration to address an identified structural road-based failure on 261 Street south of 114th Avenue. That would be roughly the red rectangle on the screen. The timing of this approval is important as administration will have the ability to complete this design and combine two projects into one, thereby saving project costs, reducing impact on area businesses, decreasing internal-external resources to complete the work. 114th Avenue from the Petro-Canada location to 61 Street to east of 259 Street is a project that is funded and is under design right now. We would have been into construction this year, however, we are having delays with land acquisitions in a small sliver of land. So that delay on that project allows us to combine these two projects into one. It becomes one consulting exercise, one contract, overlapping work with each other and coordinated as one initiative. Again, we see that as an advantage. Again, one thing is holding up one project and we're taking advantage of that and trying to leverage to bring this together and complete as one initiative. The road structure on 261 Street, just to highlight that, has deteriorated significantly in the past 2 years. There are poor driving conditions and my colleague Trent Tompkins does a great job with his team in maintaining and keeping the road open to traffic. However, they are investing more than the average number of dollars in maintaining and repairing and restoring that roadway to reasonable driving conditions. Repairs are often, well, they're done at the surface level, but they quickly break apart. So when it looks good for a little while, it quickly diminishes and we're back to where we started. So we want to do a more invasive repair, a deeper repair, get the structure where it needs to be and advance forward with the project. I'll close the presentation with that and look for
Great, thank you, Mr. Hancock. We'll look to Councillor Kuchar-Johnson for the motion, please.
That council approve $100,000 of future capital restricted surplus funding in 2024 for preliminary and detailed design of 261 Street south of 114th Avenue.
Thank you. Motion before us. Questions, comments, debate? Councillor Bernie?
Thank you again, Mr. Hancock. Just a question on this 261 Street little area here. Was this identified before as a problem area or is this something new?
To Councillor Bernie through the mayor, it was identified as a new initiative in the last 1 to 2 years. So we've been monitoring it. Mr. Tompkins has done some repairs on it that has not held up. There is some underlying saturated soil that's creating the problem. And until we dig out the material that is failing underneath the road surface, we can repair the top all we want. It's like icing the cake, but if the cake is no good, the cake's no good.
And I do understand that, and I agree with you, like, let's fix this, but I'm wondering if it's $100,000 for the design, which seems kind of high for such a tiny area, have we already budgeted for the fixing, the repair, complete repair or permanent repair of this road in our capital projects?
To Councillor Bernie through the mayor, we have not, but you will have that presented to you in the 2025 to 2029 capital budget program. So we have accounted for that in our budget planning for next year, and it will be brought in. So again, the design allows us to start in September, October, and be ready for tendering the work in January, February, so we get competitive pricing at that time of year as well.
That makes sense. Thank you for that.
Thank you. Any further questions, comments, debate? I will call the question. All in favor? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. I'll just look to Mr. Dyke. Do we want to go into closed session or should we finish here? I know you have guests who are...
I believe, Mr. Mayor, we only have one more item if communications will not be too long for council.
Okay. Awesome. Okay, let's move on. Item 6G3, funding request for preliminary and detailed design of Range Road 32 between Highway 16 and Township 530. Mr. McGowan, right to Mr. Hancock, please.
Again, I'll try to go quickly through this. We're looking for council to approve $115,000 again for preliminary and detailed design. What we're trying to do is get ahead of projects for 2025 is the nuance of the motion. And if we can put the image up, the blue area is currently a funded project that's in the 2024 budget. We tendered this in the spring of 2024 and found that the pricing was above and beyond what we had for budget allocated for this year. Rather than bring an RFD to council in the middle of the year and ask for additional funding, we chose to set the project back, defer it, and then look at how we were putting the project together to see if there was any cost efficiencies or cost savings. In doing that, we also identified that in 2025, we were already planning for the area in red that's on the screen as a continuation of that project being part 1 and part 2. What we're proposing now is that we add funding in 2024 to complete design on the red portion, and that we would complete the project when we tendered out as one single initiative the entire length. So it's a little bit longer than what we would typically do on these projects, but it's not unsurmountable by the team. So that's, in a nutshell, what we're looking at doing, quickly doing that. And again, the funding that we have for the design is not new funding. We would use the 2024 program dollars that are unspent for the portion in blue and use that money to then complete the work this year, and we would have, through the 2025 budget process, a full allocation of the amount that we require to complete the work in 2025.
All right, thank you for the presentation. Do we have 2 proposed motions? First proposed motion, Councillor Bernie.
That council approve $115,000 for preliminary and detailed design of Range Road 32 between Township Road 530 and Highway 16. Do you want me to read this? Oh, second one, or?
Oh, no, just the first one. Thank you. The first one is before us.
And I will
Questions?
make the comment, sorry.
Go ahead.
Thank you, that was well explained, and I love the idea that we're taking it from unspent funds. So good work on your part, good foresight. I will support it.
Thank you. Further questions, comments, debate? I will call the question. All in favor? Motion is carried unanimously. Proposed motion number 2, Councillor Weidman, please.
That council direct administration to fund the first proposed motion from unspent funds in the 2024 asphalt surfacing program. My comments are, I'll make it real quick. I agree with what you're trying to do. You're trying to save some money and combine the project. There's a lot of the traffic on that road is from the Paul band. Is anybody ever approaching the federal government for some of these funds as well? It might be a long shot, but I just got to throw that out. I don't need to get into it really.
To Councillor Weidman through the mayor, not to my knowledge, but maybe Mr. McGowan has a comment?
Yeah, just a quick comment. No, we have not pursued anything in that manner. I mean, the same argument can be made about Spruce Grove residents around the town and the city, or the city of Edmonton, but it's our jurisdiction, and we haven't entertained speaking with the federal government.
My only concern is that the Sundance Road is not being maintained anymore by the Paul band and or by TransAlta from what I can see. And so a lot of that traffic is going to get pushed onto that road. It is anyway. So it's maybe a long shot, but we should at least explore it. I'll leave it with you. Thanks.
Great, thank you. Questions, comments, debate? I will call the question. All in favor? Motion carried unanimously. Okay, we have communications, then we'll go into closed session. Is that the plan? Okay, let's move along. Item 7.1, proclamation, September 2024. Councillor Kubasiuk for the motion, please.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that the following proclamations for September 2024 be received for information as listed. I don't think I need to read them.
Okay, we do have them all in front of us. So as listed, the motion before us, questions, comments, debate? Call the question. All in favor? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 7.2, Rural Municipalities of Alberta Newsletter Update. Councillor Kucher-Johnson.
Let the Rural Municipalities of Alberta newsletter be received for as information.
Thank you. Motion before us, questions, comments, debate? We'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 7.3, Federation of Canadian Municipalities Update. For Councillor Weidman for the motion, please.
That the update be received for information.
Thank you. Motion before us, questions, comments, debate? We'll call the question. All in favor? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Mayor's report we will put up in front of us. I'll just begin and be brief. We haven't had a council meeting since the end of June, so a lot of items listed that encompass the summer. I'll only touch on a couple of them. First of all, July 6th, attended the Calgary Stampede, the largest political networking event in Western Canada each year. Did have opportunities to attend the mid-sized cities event, had opportunities to meet with Minister Sani, had an opportunity for an introduction to Naheed Nenshi, as well as all of the mid-city colleagues. Also attended the Crestview event, got considerable time with Minister Horner, Minister Williams. The Minister Dreeshen event, probably the most important event for us to attend. He does know who is there and supporting. It's an event where we got considerable time and considerable support, tremendous support from our minister in that area. Also had an opportunity to spend time with Premier Smith, and that was all aligned with MLA Getson and Boychenko. Then attended the Canadian Strategies Group and had more time to meet with Premier Smith and great conversations with Minister McIver, also Minister Jean with respect to our energy file, Minister Schultz with respect to our environment file, and the closing of the loop that allowed us to begin the work on the waterfront park in Wadman. Minister Lohan talking about forest fires, Minister Glubish, and MLA Kozowski. The rest are all listed there. Again, the only one I'll make note of is the Friends gathering for the celebration of life of our councillor who was lost to us. The event held on September 5th and spoke of the tremendous turnout and just an opportunity to see a history of a man that we only got to see for 3 years, but a lifetime of memories, and everything that was shared about his history, we got to see snapshots of it, and we all miss him dearly. So that is my mayor's report. Councillor Burney for the motion, please.
So moved.
Thank you. Questions, comments? We'll call a question. All in favor? Motion carried unanimously. Let's go on. Committee reports, item 7.5. I'll start down at the far right. Councillor Burney.
I sent my report in. It's very quick. I attended the Paul First Nation powwow on August 16th. Went to the Alberta Open Farm Days, the garden venue, which is an interesting venue. Stony Plain North Central Co-op, gas bar opening, and the Wabamun Museum meeting, which I have shared the minutes with council.
Thank you. Questions? Councillor Kuchar-Johnson.
Sorry, I got a longer, I was quite busy the last little while because we hadn't met in a long time. So I had the Alice meeting on the 26th. It was a joint meeting with PAC. Updates were shared. June 26th, we met as with the TRI members, Spruce Grove and Stony Plain, at the Golf Biz Canada. We shared updates from the area. On June 26th, I went to the hydrogen event at the Raceway. It was put on by Edmonton Global and the Edmonton International Airport. They demonstrate hydrogen vehicles, and we got a chance to even drive those. July 20th, I went to the Emergency Preparedness Day at Wabamun Fire Station. Had a look at up close at many of the things that Parkland County offers. July 22nd was the Pembina River District meeting. July 24th, I visited Prairie Livestock Limited Farm. So they are one of 3 chicken producers for all the grocery stores in this area, and highly dependent on internet accessibility because that helps regulate their temperatures and their humidity. And so internet is a very key piece of their business, cannot be in existence without it. July 28th to the 30th, I went to Regina with Kevin McGivery, who is from the Parkland RCMP detachment. The mayors from Spruce Grove and Stony and managers came, and we took a tour of the RCMP depot. We were able to tour the education facilities, view the classrooms at work. So some of the highlights was viewing the firing range in the area for the police car driving. We also went and attended a graduation of approximately 24 individuals. This happens almost every week except a couple of months in a year. So they are constantly putting out new employees, and we even met a couple of individuals from the Tri-Region who were training there. July 31st, Pioneer Museum. August 13th, I attended the Civic Center naming announcement. The naming rights sponsor will be Heavy Metal Equipment and Rentals. So the new Civic Center in Spruce Grove will be called Heavy Metal Place. August 17th, I attended for Open Farm Days. I attended the garden venue as well. Let's see, on July 21st, went to the Youth Central Connection in Spruce Grove. Had an opportunity to see some of the work that they are doing with the youth in the area. On July 24th, Spruce Grove Agri-Fair welcomed Premier Daniel Smith and the partners from the Tri-Region. August 26th, Yellowhead Regional Library Executive Committee meeting, and August 28th, Alice meeting. That's it.
That was a busy
It was
month and a
busy.
half for you.
It was.
Questions? Councillor Grabowski, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I was just busy sending my report to council. I'll just briefly highlight. You're correct. We haven't had a chance to meet since and give reports since end of June there. But I did attend middle of August, August 14th, the Community Sustainability Committee met, and they're doing a very, very good job. There's some new members on that committee. Compliments to Dave and Suzanne for bringing those members up to speed on the policies and the allocations of funding for not-for-profit groups. They're doing a really good job. That previously had been handled by council, and it's much better functioning at that level. So awareness from community in implementing that policy is very, very good. August 17th, I attended the Open Farm Days at the Multicultural Center. Fife and Deckel was there serving samples of pie and soup and that kind of thing. Also Garden Venice, I attended Darren Smith. He's a member of the Alice Committee and had a chance to go on site and look at his incredible development there. August 21st, the Youth Center Connections. It was held in Spruce Grove in Central Park. I think Councillor Kuchar-Johnson attended as well, but a lot of career and life management related programming. Service out of Edmonton. As former chair of Parkland School Division, I'm aware of awareness and counseling services that they, relationship building that they offer for students. Very, very well done. And there were a lot of late junior high, early high school students that were attending there. I attended Agri-Fair along with councillors Kuchar-Johnson and Wiedemann and yourself and participated in the Agri-Fair parade. They haven't had that for 20 or 25 years. It was a feather on our cap to see Premier Smith then. We did have access to her, to speak to her directly as well. Alice, as Councillor Kuchar-Johnson mentioned, met on August 28th to review applications for the Alice program. And I attended the Edmonton Metro Board, the regional golf tournament, so in support of food bank. I think that's it, Mr. Chair. That's what I'd like to report on, so thank you very much. Also, the Cardlock and Stony Plain, I attended that as well. Oh, yes, and the Run for Life, the Rotary Suicide Prevention on Sunday. Thank you.
Many events over the summer. Thank you.
Yeah.
Councillor Wiedemann.
Yeah, in addition to the division work I was doing mostly around Wobman, Agri-Fair, Spruce Grove, Fall of Show and Shine the other day, probably one of the best attended they've ever had. We filmed in Wobman the other day, Parkland County, with Simon, and the carbon capture event last night. The carbon capture event was the opening to their function, and there's people from all over the world there. I had a bit of a discussion with the energy minister, Brian Jean, and they're trying to promote it as an energy producer, and it really isn't. I'm not sure where they're going with it. But anyway, it's carbon capture, and I think we've had one project already canceled that was affecting Parkland County somewhat. So anyway, that was it so far. Thanks.
That would have provided us no revenue, but
Yeah.
just saying. Okay, questions for Councillor Wiedemann? Councillor Wiedemann for the motion, please.
I'll make the motion that committee reports be received for information.
Thank you. Questions, comments? I will call the question. All in favor? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. Councillor Kubasiak for item 8.1, closed session, for the motion to convene in closed session.
Mr. Chair, I move that council convene in closed session pursuant to Section 197 of the Municipal Government Act to meet in private to discuss matters protected from disclosure by Sections 16, 23, and 24 of the Freedom of Information and Protection of Privacy Act at 11:43, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. All in favor? Motion carried unanimously. Thank you. We'll now take a couple of minutes to get into closed session, and we will begin that at 11:50 for a quick washroom break. Thank you.
Okay.
We moved pretty darn quick.
Yep, that's good.